You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 482. My name is Brando. Coming up, the Taylor Swift episode of Appetite for Distortion. Did I jump the shark? No. I'm just expanding that 6 degrees of GNR bacon, and there is no one better to discuss it with than Rob Sheffield of Rolling Stone, the new author of the author of a new book, I should phrase it. Heartbreak is the national anthem, how Taylor Swift reinvented pop music. And we're going to compare Taylor with Axl, Taylor with Izzy. Believe it or not, these are comparisons that we can make. Her double album with User Illusion. I mean, there's a lot of... I'm not crazy. He keeps saying to convince himself that he's not. But I wanted to present and set up the interview properly, because if you're familiar with me in the podcast, sometimes I do these radio tours that Rob is currently on right now, going from station to station across the U.S., promoting his book. And I'm here playing the old Lily Tomlin character, connecting him via Zoom, via phone. And I just want to show you the last minute or so from the previous station before my time, because I kind of got an unsolicited setup, so which I really appreciate. So with his permission, Sean Dillon out of KONE out of Lubbock, Texas. Take it away.
And Brandon, I discovered your incredible pod, and it rocks. So we will talk later.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
That is, you do great work, my friend.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually going to interview Rob Sheffield for that right now. So you give me a perfect segue. I'm a tour producer and a podcast host. Look at that.
I love that. I'm a radio guy and a top podcast host, so we do similar things.
Thank you so much, Sean.
That was the perfect lead-in, actually, Rob. So yeah, you don't need to turn your camera on. You can leave yours off, but so you can see me and you can see all the Guns N' Roses stuff. Oh, also pictures of cats and my son, but Guns N' Roses stuff behind me. I've been working for iHeart for near 10 years, radio 20. But this Guns N' Roses podcast came out of a passion for me. I've been lucky enough to interview some really cool people. And when I saw your name on there, somebody who I've grown up with, essentially, 'cause I'm 41. I don't know if that makes you feel older or whatever. But 1997, when you kind of started your career, that was like the kind of, I don't know, the core of where I started my love of music. So the fact that we're here today to talk about Taylor Swift may surprise some of my listeners. Heartbreak is the national anthem, how Taylor Swift reinvented pop music. But I'm going to make connections, and I think you will appreciate it, between Taylor and Axl and Taylor and Guns N' Roses, because you go way back. You were in line, right, for Use Your Illusion? You were waiting there at midnight at Tower Records?
Yes, September 26, I think, 1991. And that was the first time that a record going on sale at midnight was this big thing that people actually waited in line for. I was in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was waiting at Plan 9 Records in Charlottesville.
Oh, okay.
And there was a line that was stretching all around the block. It was really fun. It was a really exciting sort of activity, just because if you loved the music and you loved the band and you're excited for this record, it was a thing where you could just participate in the whole event just by being with all these other people who loved Guns N' Roses. And so we were all getting the album at the same time and felt super excited about that.
So how does that compare? And it's just the way I'm glad this opportunity presented itself, not just to get to talk to you, but honestly to talk about Taylor Swift, because I'm not who you may expect. You're going to have different interviews today focusing on that. But when, the Tortured Poets Department, right, when that came out, and that's a double album, how does that compare to the excitement? You've lived through both of these monumental double records. I can't remember the last double album prior to Taylor's that mattered like GNR's. So can you compare that experience at all? Because you're waiting online. You're not not in line, if that makes sense, or
Yes.
vice versa.
One thing, one thing Gen Xers do not miss about the old days is how we used to have to wait in line for concert tickets, and waiting in line for albums was really a new thing. It wasn't until uh, the '90s that when SoundScan came in that people got so into release dates. But the experience, this was an album worth waiting for because there was only one Guns N' Roses, and we knew it was epic. We knew it was, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, like you said, a complicated double album. But Taylor and Axl have so many similarities that I'm sure we will get into. But one of the key ones is that, and just to set up these gigantic epic albums that they made, is that they were complicated artists who people expected to be simple just because of who they were, where they came from, what they looked like, how they dressed. People very much wanted to dismiss Axl when he came on as just a, just a very like standard Sunset Strip sort of hair metal guy. That was the term that people used in those days and still use. But people really wanted to dismiss Guns N' Roses on that level, just like they wanted to dismiss Taylor when she showed up.
Hmm.
So for them to make these complex double albums is a case of them exceeding expectations as they'd done throughout their career.
See, I knew I wasn't crazy for thinking that because you're right. There are these expectations forced upon them by the media, and they're saying, no, we're going to do what we want. And the fact that they could put out these just epic pieces of music that their fans are just still devouring. I was listening to the last interview you just did prior to this, and you're talking about Easter eggs and just little things like that Axl would do, Taylor did, of course, going way back to the Beatles. But I always use the 6 degrees. We're right into it, the 6 degrees of GNR Bacon. But one that I want to give a shout out to a fellow author that I'm sure you know, Ben Apatow, he's written his most recent book about body count. And
Yep.
he was reading, he's currently reading your book, and he sent me this section of it that there's a Velvet Revolver reference in Taylor's book. So, and that has to do with Taylor Swift's dad. So I guess how did that, and that's how she was found by Big Machine Record, which is named after Velvet. How does that story go?
Yeah, that was just where her record label got her name, Big Machine Records, who are a startup. Um,
Okay.
it was a publicist from Nashville who was starting his label, Scott Borchetta, and signed her early on. Her dad bought a 3% stake in the label. That's the connection with her dad. But the label took its name from that Velvet Revolver's song, and it was really funny because it was really a brash sort of thing to call your record label Big Machine when they haven't put out an album yet. But I just love that there's that, that Guns N' Roses connection right there.
Oh yeah, that's what I thrive off. But I want to focus what you're here on, and for me to be educated, and that is about Taylor Swift because you can't deny it. I mean, in my world, GNR came back, and their reunion was like the fourth most successful tour ever. But
And a
Taylor Swift to beat
phenomenal
that,
show.
and yeah, oh for sure, I've seen a few of them, as you have. But
Yeah.
Taylor Swift, almost seemingly without trying, could easily beat that. To the point where which I think is one of the kindest things any artist has ever done, when she gave what was $100,000 to each one of her drivers. I mean, that just shows a lot.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about how she came from this very, a country singer? I remember when I was working at a cluster where she was only on country radio to being this massive global star that no matter what genre of music you like, you know who she is, and you have to respect her. And anyone else is just a hater that's gonna hate. I'm sorry, I had to do that once. Like, for someone who's seen so many musicians grow over your career, how does Taylor's compare to that? Is anyone even comparable to that? I know we mentioned Axel, but is anyone compared to where they started and she's not even close to being finished?
No, it's so weird. She's about to turn 35. She is a child. She is a child. I think with Taylor, it was something where she showed up. She was so ambitious from the get-go. She was so obsessed with songwriting and obsessed with finding new ways to make songwriting right for the type of self-expression that she wanted to do, and that she was speaking for a type of fan who didn't get a lot of respect from the industry. Um, Much like with Guns N' Roses. When Guns N' Roses came out, the music industry was very interested in getting money from these kids, not so respectful of them or taking them seriously, and definitely saw GNR as a band that they were happy to make money from, but not a style of music that they respected, or not an audience that they respected. And it's the same with Taylor Swift, that she was a teenage girl with a guitar writing her own songs at a time when that was not done in the pop scene or the country music scene. And it was seen almost as a novelty, almost like that's her angle. What a concept. This teenage girl can actually write her own songs. And there was still a lot of condescension, a lot of skepticism about whether she was even writing the songs, which we still see today, incredibly. And she had to fight to prove that this could be done, that she could actually have success writing her own songs as a young woman with the guitar. And of course, this was the time when guitar was supposed to be on the way out. This in the late 2000s, it was very customary. All pop music experts knew that music with guitars was old-fashioned and obsolete, and it was going away and never coming back. And it was also it was full of evil cultural signifiers. So it was something that was absolutely ripe to be dismissed and was dismissed, but she proved that you could not only get away with it, that you could become the biggest star in the music business doing that. And if you look at pop music in 2024 with Sabrina Carpenter and Chappell Roan and Billie Eilish and Olivia Rodrigo, Gracie Abrams, all those stars, you see that this is what pop music is now. Taylor has created a world of Taylor Swifts.
That's a really good point, and something I've noticed, but I guess I really haven't connected that where the influence that Taylor has had on the guitar. I follow a lot of rock sites, and yeah, there are people who make fun of Taylor Swift about playing the guitar, but I think you really need to take a step back because she's not trying to be Eddie Van Halen up there. She's not trying to be Buckethead up there. She is influencing other guitar-driven pop stars. Is she somebody? Do you credit her for that? Because I mean, Billie Eilish, I think it was a big deal when she started playing acoustic recently on this tour, like that she was started to play guitar, that she's learning. Is that what does that show? Is that just show that pop is it the guitar? There's certain fads are cyclical, or that just rock and roll, no matter what anybody says, is never gonna die. It's always gonna be there.
It's amazing. Rock and roll is always going to be there. There's something about just the fact that, Sabrina Carpenter gets up on stage. She's one of the biggest artists of the year. She's got so many of the year's biggest hits. Her show, she goes up there with her acoustic guitar, and she's like, yeah, this is the machine I write songs on, play songs on, that self-contained artist in the sense that Bob Dylan was. And that is extremely appealing to people. Uh, and it was very much Taylor who rescued that. I mentioned this in the book, but there was a big worry in the guitar industry in the late 2000s, early 20 teens, that the guitar was dead. Sales were down. And there was this gnashing of teeth, this article in the Washington Post, a very famous one, you probably remember, the death of the electric guitar. And I mentioned it in the book. I actually have a whole chapter about it because it's funny. They're talking about the fact that, that rock music is obsolete and it's only for old people and it's withering away, and music with guitars is on the way out. And that, they have people from the big guitar companies talking about how sales are down. And then there's this really strange detail toward the end of the article where the guy says, and by the way, something strange started to happen around 2010. Acoustic guitars started to sell more than ever. They were selling more than electric guitars. And the people who were buying them were girls. And that at guitar academies, that suddenly, like, there were 10 times as many girls playing guitar as there were before. And it was funny to see that the guitar industry was not really psyched about the Taylor Swift impact on their industry, and that they said basically, if this is the end, if young girls are the ones buying the guitars, then clearly the guitar is dead. And it's funny that you look at pop music in 2024, absolutely nobody is saying the guitar is dead. The guitar is such a huge part of what a singer-songwriter does. And you look at like the big hits of 2024, and so much of that has to do with Taylor Swift and the way she would just stand up there with a guitar and say, I'm Taylor. I write songs about my feelings. I use this guitar to write these songs about my feelings. And, it's like the old joke about, the Velvet Underground, that everybody who bought the album went out and started their own band. And that's definitely true with Taylor Swift, that the music with guitars is so huge, largely because of her.
I love that. Obviously, we focus on so much how Slash impact the guitar, and being, just what his shape, his shadow, he's so identifiable, and you really could say Taylor Swift. I don't want to say Taylor Swift is the Slash of this generation, but as far as
Izzy,
influence,
maybe.
yeah, the
Izzy,
Izzy.
maybe. Yeah.
Actually, right, Izzy. That's right. She's
Right? She's a juju hound. She doesn't shred, she doesn't solo, nothing like that. But she carries the song. She uses the guitar to write the songs, but also to play live, and made it a big part of her visual brand, the way Slash did. The way Slash made people want to play guitar even before they heard him, because nobody in history ever looked so cool posing with the guitar since Jimi Hendrix. You just have Slash up there, and whether he's got the hat on or a shirt on or off or whatever he's doing, Slash made it look so incredibly fun to play guitar. And Taylor was the same thing. She had her signature rhinestone studded model that she would pose. She would wear a top hat sometimes, but there would be like Slash, she understood the visual iconography of the guitar, made that a huge part, the center of her visual brand.
Oh, I love that. I knew you were the right guy to talk to about this. Izzy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I have you for a few more minutes before we move on to the next station. I don't want to be live because I still have a job to do.
Okay.
Um, I'll give you a heads up. We'll be speaking with Paul from Detroit. I want to show my listeners how I can multitask as well. But I'll ask you a couple quick things here. What's something you learned about Taylor that we may not expect from that book? Because it's a different world now where they put so much out on social media. You feel you know everything, but you go in and do your research. What's something that you learned that you were surprised by?
She listens to everything. She listens to everything. She takes ideas from everything. She takes inspiration from everything. She is absolutely obsessed with pop music, and she will listen to everything. I found this great interview from 2008, actually, where the interviewer says, so what part of music are you still catching up on that you have to learn about? And she says, hair metal. And she says, that's what all the guys in my band listen to. So she's like, I'm trying to appreciate Kiss right now. But it's funny that you could see that. You could see that influence everywhere. My personal Taylor GNR theory is that her favorite is Use Your Illusion, definitely seems to be like hers, along with GNR Lies, also the thing of just doing this random, nobody expects it, stylistic detour kind of thing right after your blockbuster hit album is a very Taylor move. But I think of a song that's nowhere near as famous as it should be on Use Your Illusion, Breakdown, which is
Yeah.
one of my very favorite songs. That is such a Taylor song in so many ways. The way it tells such a long story, the way it has banjo, the way it has different quotes from different sources, the whole like, vanishing point, last American hero thing, which is a very
Yeah.
Taylor thing to do. I think Breakdown is the most underrated Guns N' Roses song, which he didn't ask for, but I'm obsessed with that song. And to me, that is the most Swiftian Guns N' Roses song.
Ooh, I love that. And you're gonna make a lot of, because when I ask underrated GNR songs, that's the one that comes up the most from on social media is Breakdown. Because yeah,
It's
I mean,
crazy. That song is just the absolute best.
do you have a favorite? Um, you've gotten a chance to interview some of the guys over the years, right?
No, never
No,
interviewed.
okay, you never got. Have you tried? Have you tried to interview? Because I mean, obviously, Slash has been featured in Rolling Stone, GNR famously, um, but your
I
focus. I know
guess
you're a Beatles guy. Uh,
the one I've interviewed is Steven Adler.
okay,
Um, and yeah, I've talked to him a few times. Met him at the Okla at Rocklahoma, that
okay.
festival 2007, the phenomenal festival where Adler's Appetite was playing, and got some great time with Steven Adler there.
Okay, cool.
He was showing pictures of his pug. He was so proud of his pug.
Well, we wrap up here, I want to put out into the universe for you to land an Izzy interview because I appreciate you shouting him out for this, and also for an Axel Taylor collab. I mean, he's worked with Pink. He's Carrie Underwood. I mean, that would break the internet, as the kids say. Axel
I
and
think that
Taylor.
would be a fantastic duet. Their voices are so similar. They both have that hungry sort of yowl in their voice. I would love to hear her singing a GNR song, and I would love to hear him singing a Swift song. Romeo, save me. That would be phenomenal.
Well, Rob Sheffield, thank you so much, and stand by for more interviews. Not about Guns N' Roses though. More Taylor.
Thank you, Brandon. Brandon, your podcast, I discovered it when you posted about it a couple of weeks ago, where you tagged me in that.
I did.
I love this podcast. It's totally new to me, and I'm catching up on the episodes that I missed, but I absolutely love Appetite for Distortion. It's phenomenal.
Thank you. That means a lot. I'm gonna have to kind of calm my fanboy because again, I've been reading and watching you my entire life. So thank you, and let's get on the next next station.
All right.
A kind man. I say that a lot for so many of my interviews, and then I say that a lot. But Rob was really kind. He said if I needed more time or time to discuss this in-depth conversation that we're picking apart, comparing Taylor Swift to Guns N' Roses, how can you do that? Well, we did it. So perhaps we'll get Rob Sheffield on the podcast again. Just a really awesome guy that you could talk about so much music with, and I'm honored to have him on the podcast, and just honored because he told me off air that the episode that he listened to once I tagged him when I was promoting this episode, that the one he listened to was Dave Navarro, and he's like, that was a really good interview. Thank you for doing it. And to hear that from somebody like Rob meant the world. It really does mean the world to me. And I don't know if you could tell kind of in real time when both Sean at the beginning and Rob at the end giving me compliments. I don't take compliments well. It's something I'm working on in therapy still. And, I want to say this, as mental health is always the secondary theme to Guns N' Roses here. I still have a relationship with my therapist, but I haven't seen her as frequently as I was for most of my life up until Baby Brownstone, Harrison. But the last few months, I've seen her a handful of times, but I said to myself the other day, I need help. I'm overwhelmed by a lot of things. I need to talk. And she was great, and I even went through my job about a lot of insurance companies will specifically help you out with mental health now that the stigma is kind of being broken. So just want to let you know, even though I'm in a really great place in my life now, with getting an interview, Rob Sheffield, and all these and you get to talk to you on a daily basis, and wife and kid, I can still get overwhelmed. So I just thought it was important to let you know that I still need help. We all need help, and it's okay to talk to somebody. So I digress. Next episode, going to be not as serious. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk to the guy who knows who jumped into the cake in the November Rain video. It's brought up every year at this time. November Rain, this is our month, right, Gunners? And we dissect the November Rain video, billions of views. But no one really seems to know for sure. It's not a household name of who jumped into the cake, because it's not a household name. So we're going to do a deep dive into the story, okay, next episode, and perhaps get closer to maybe having the cake jumper on the show. If he's alive, I don't want to say it like that, but you never know. Only Stephanie Seymour died in that video. You never know. You don't know what happened with the cake jumper after that. What was the aftermath? You can make a Netflix series out of it. But I digress again. So lots to come. I'm already thinking about episode 500. I can't even believe it. But when's the next episode? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.